Hi everyone, I'm going to go over the math boxes for lesson 6-8 on page 212. If you did not get a chance to finish them, pause the video and then play it once you're done. Alright, let's look at number 1. It says fill in the blank with greater than, less than, or equal to. A, is 3/6 greater than, less than, or equal to 1/2? Well, we know that 3/6 and 1/2 are equivalent fractions, so 3/6 is equal to 1/2. Remember, the closer that these fractions get to the whole, the bigger the fraction is. So let's look at B. 4/5 is that greater than, less than, or equal to 5/8? So you have to think, I'm going to put the whole number as a fraction next to it. To make this a whole, I would need 5/5. So 4 is pretty close to 5. And to make 5/8 a whole, I would need 8/8. And 5 is not as close to 8. So 4/5 is greater than 5/8. Let's look at C. 3/8 is that greater than, less than, or equal to 2/4? Well, I know 3/8 is pretty far from that whole of 8/8 because 3 is less than 8. And then for 2/4, I know that 4/4 would be the whole. So 2/4 is pretty close. It's about halfway, 1/2. So 3/8 is less than 2/4. Now here we have to be careful because we have different denominators. So I'm going to turn 4/10 into 40 hundredths. And 30 hundredths is pretty far from the whole of 100 hundredths. So that's going to be a small fraction. And 40 hundredths is also pretty far from that whole of 100 hundredths. But since the denominators are the same, all you have to do is look at the numerators. And I know that 40 is greater than 30. All right, let's look at number 2. Use a straight edge. Draw the other half of the symmetrical shape. So I don't have a ruler with me, so I'm just going to try to mirror this side with this side. So I'm going to go down, up, straight down to, in, and then diagonal. All right, let's look at number 3. Fill in the chart. Milliliters to liters. 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. So you are multiplying by 1,000 for each liter. So if I have 2 liters, I have 2,000 milliliters. If I have 5 liters, I have 5,000 milliliters. If I have 6.5 and I multiply by 1,000, I get 6,500. Be careful with the decimal point. And if I have 8 75 hundredths, I would get 8,750 milliliters. Number 4, Justin has 150 baseball cards in his collection. It is 3 times as large as Stuart's collection. How many cards does Stuart have? So we know that Justin has 150 baseball cards. But Stuart's is Justin has 150 baseball cards in his collection. Justin's collection is 3 times as large as Stuart's. But we don't know how much Stuart has. So 3 times however much Stuart has, and I'm going to make this into a star so you can see. 3 times Stuart's collection equals 150. So you could write it as a multiplication number model or as a division. I know if Justin has 150 baseball cards and Stuart's is 3 times less, I have to divide, which would equal Stuart's collection. And if you solved 150 divided by 3, Stuart has 50 cards in his collection. And the way that you could check your answer is 50 times 3, right? Because Justin's collection is 3 times as large, should equal 150, and that's exactly how many baseball cards Justin has. Okay, the last question is another line plot. So it says Mrs. Sullivan's class measured to the nearest ½ inch. That means each one of these is going to be a ½ inch apart. How much their plants had grown 1 week after planting seedlings. So here is where they give you all of the data, inches grown. So A, plot the data on the line plot below and use it to answer the questions. So first we have to come up with a title. So I'm going to say Mrs. Sullivan's classes plant growth. I don't want it to interfere with if I have to put some X's over there. That's my title. The label at the bottom, which I don't want you guys to forget because this is really important, this shows inches of growth. And now I'm going to switch my color. Let's do blue. Now I have to put in my intervals here, how many inches. So I'm going to look at my inches grown, and I'm going to look at which one is the highest. So if I take my finger and I go across, I notice that 1/2 is the minimum, and 3 1/2 is the maximum. So now I just have to fill in by a ½ inch. So I have 1/2, then I would have 1 inch, 1 inch and 1/2. And then I would have 2 inches because I'm adding a ½ of an inch every time because it has to be even. 2 1/2, and then 3. So now we did this in the math boxes the other day. You want to make sure when you guys are plotting, you're crossing out to show that you've used that data point. Otherwise, you're going to skip one and make a mistake. So the first one is 1/2. So I would put an X. Then we have 1, and I'd put an X. 1/2, I'd put an X. 2, I'd put an X. 2 1/2. 3, 3 1/2. Then I would keep going. Another ½ another 1. It's very easy to make a mistake if you don't check them off. 2 1/2, 3 1/2, ½ 1, 2 1/2, 3 1/2, and finally 2, wrong one, 2 1/2. So I also like to go in and just write how many. So this has 3, 3, 2, 2, 4, 1, and 3. I just like to write how many X's, so it's just easier in case I have to subtract or add. Okay, so we just did A. Let's do B. How many plants grew to be 2 or 2 1/2 inches tall? 2 or 2 1/2. So we have to look at 2 and 2 1/2 columns. So I have 2 here, plus 4 is 6 plants grew to be either 2 or 2 1/2 inches. All right, so we just answered B. Let's look at C. What is the difference in height between the tallest plant, which is 3 1/2, and the shortest plant, which is a ½ inch? So we are going to have to subtract. I can make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. 3 1/2 minus 1/2 equals h for the height. What is the difference in height? And I know that those two halves cancel each other out, and you are left with 3 inches. So 3.5 and 3, the difference is, 3.5 and a half, the difference is 3 inches. Okay, if you guys have any questions on your math boxes or any other part of this lesson, leave a comment below the assignment on Google Classroom, and your teacher will be able to help you.